After my parents tried to force me into supporting my sister, I packed my bags and walked away from everything I knew. Stay with me through this story, because it's one of those moments in life where betrayal teaches you more than love ever could. My name is Thomas Caldwell. I'm 28, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the one holding my family together. My parents, Richard and Donna, always saw me as the responsible one, the one they could count on whenever things went wrong. And my younger sister, Marissa, she was the golden child. Spoiled, manipulative, and always shielded from consequences. No matter how many mistakes she made, they covered for her, defended her, and expected me to clean up the mess. It all came to a breaking point the day I found out about the loan. Marissa had started a business that was destined to fail from the beginning. She poured money into flashy parties, expensive furniture, and luxury trips, pretending she was running some big company, when in reality, she had no clue what she was doing. The debts piled up, and instead of letting her face the outcome of her choices, my parents came to me. They sat me down with papers already prepared, asking me to co-sign a massive loan to cover Marissa's failure. I couldn't believe it. After years of sacrificing for them, helping pay the mortgage, covering Marissa's tuition when she dropped out, even taking on side jobs to make sure there was food in the house, they still thought it was my responsibility to fix her mistakes. When I refused, their smiles turned into anger. Richard's voice thundered across the living room. "Thomas, this is your sister. Family stands together. You'll sign the papers and that's final." Donna's tone was colder, sharper. "Don't be selfish, Thomas. You've always had a stable job. You'll recover. Your sister just needs one more chance." But I knew better. One more chance with Marissa always meant another disaster. I looked at her sitting across from me, smirking like she had already won, like my life was just another tool for her to use. And something inside me broke. I told them no. For the first time in my life, I refused to carry the weight of their choices. That's when the shouting started. They hurled words at me that cut deeper than I expected. Ungrateful, heartless, a disappointment. I wanted to remind them of the nights I stayed up late working overtime so they could keep the lights on. I wanted to remind them of the weekends I skipped outings with friends so I could babysit Marissa when she was out of control. But I didn't. I just stood there, feeling every piece of respect I had for them crumble. That night, I packed my bags. As I closed the door behind me, I realized I wasn't just walking out of the house. I was walking away from a life where my worth was measured only by how much I could sacrifice. For the first time, I chose myself. The shouting had barely stopped from the night before when my parents cornered me again. This time, their words weren't just filled with anger. They carried an ultimatum that would change my life forever. Richard stood in front of me with the loan papers in his hand, his face red with fury. "Thomas, you either sign this and do your duty as a son, or you can pack your things and leave this house today. We won't tolerate your stubbornness anymore." Donna sat on the couch, her arms crossed tightly, her eyes burning into me. "Your father's right. You're making this more difficult than it needs to be. Do what's expected of you. Be a good son for once." Her voice was sharp, as if I had spent my whole life disappointing them, when the truth was I had carried their burdens for years. And then there was Marissa. She leaned casually against the doorway, arms folded, wearing that smug little grin that I'd seen 1,000 times before. She tilted her head and sneered. "You've always been jealous, Thomas. Admit it. You can't stand that I'm the one mom and dad actually care about. You've always been second best." Her words sliced through me, not because they were true, but because I could see how much satisfaction she took in watching me suffer. For a moment, I almost broke. I almost gave in, just to make the noise stop, to prove I wasn't the cold-hearted brother they painted me to be. But then I looked at Marissa's smirk, at my parents waiting for me to bow down yet again, and something inside me snapped. "No," I said, my voice steady, even though my hands trembled. "I'm done. I'm not signing, and I'm not living in this house under your control anymore." Richard's jaw clenched. Donna gasped as if I had just cursed at her. Marissa laughed, a high-pitched sound filled with mockery. "You won't last a week out there without us," she said. "You think you're so strong, but you'll come crawling back." I didn't respond. I didn't scream or fight anymore. Instead, I walked into my room and pulled out the old duffel bag from my closet. I threw in my clothes, my few books, and the little savings I had tucked away. As I packed, I could hear them in the living room, mocking me, calling me ungrateful, telling me I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Every word stung, but every zipper I pulled closed on that bag gave me strength. When I stepped out with my belongings, Donna shook her head in disgust. Richard muttered something about me being a failure, and Marissa smirked like she had already won. But I didn't give them the satisfaction of an argument. I just walked to the door, opened it, and turned back one last time. "I'll survive," I told them, my voice calm. And then, with one final slam of the door, I cut ties with the family that had never really seen me for who I was. For the first time, the silence outside felt like freedom. It had been months since I walked out of that house, months since I decided to start living for myself. Life was far from easy, but every day I felt a little stronger, a little freer. I thought I had finally put the chaos of my family behind me. That illusion shattered when I ran into Mrs. Turner, the old neighbor from across the street. She recognized me instantly, her face a mixture of pity and curiosity. "Thomas," she said, lowering her voice, "have you heard what happened with your family? Marissa's business collapsed. It's all over town." For a moment I didn't say anything. My stomach tightened as she went on. She explained how the loan had gone unpaid, how the creditors were after them, how Richard and Donna were drowning in debt. And Marissa, instead of taking responsibility, was running around crying, blaming everyone else, her investors, her employees, even the economy. Never herself. I thanked Mrs. Turner and walked away, my mind spinning. A part of me felt relief. It wasn't my problem anymore. Another part felt the sting of old wounds, remembering how hard I had fought not to get dragged into this exact disaster. I had been right all along. That evening, as I sat in my small apartment eating dinner, my phone rang. I stared at the screen. It was my mother. I hadn't heard her voice since the day I left. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Thomas." Donna's voice came through the line, shaky and desperate. "We need you. Things are bad, really bad. Your father and we don't know what to do. Marissa is suffering, and the bank is threatening to take everything. Please be a good son. Help us get back on our feet." I closed my eyes, her words cutting into me. Be a good son. How many times had I heard that line, twisted to mean sacrifice everything for your sister? I took a deep breath and forced myself to stay calm. "Mom," I said quietly, "I warned you. I told you I wasn't going to sign that loan. I told you Marissa needed to take responsibility for her actions. You didn't listen. You chose her over me, over reason, every single time. I'm not going to fix this for you." There was silence on the line before her voice rose, filled with anger. "How can you be so heartless? After everything we've done for you, you turn your back on us now? We are your family, Thomas." Something inside me hardened. I thought about the nights I had spent working myself to exhaustion for them, the years I had given up, the way they had thrown me aside the moment I stopped obeying. "No," I said firmly. "You turned your back on me a long time ago. I'm done being your safety net." Before she could respond, I ended the call. I sat there staring at the phone, my chest heavy but my heart steady. For the first time, I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. Life slowly began to find a new rhythm. The emptiness of my small apartment no longer felt like a punishment, but a canvas I could shape into something of my own. Work kept me busy, but for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was learning to live. That change began the day I met Caleb Morris. Caleb was a co-worker I had only exchanged polite greetings with before, but one evening after a long shift, he invited me to join a few colleagues for dinner. At first, I hesitated. I had grown used to being alone, to keeping my distance from people who might expect too much from me. But something in Caleb's easy smile pushed me to say yes. That small choice opened the door to a new kind of life. Over the weeks that followed, Caleb and I became friends. He was honest, hardworking, and didn't carry the kind of hidden agendas I had grown so used to with my family. Through him, I met his sister, Natalie. She wasn't loud or attention-seeking like Marissa. She was calm, compassionate, and grounded in a way that made me feel safe. Natalie had a way of listening that made me believe my words actually mattered. One evening, after Caleb had gone to bed, Natalie and I sat in their kitchen drinking tea. I told her more than I planned to, about the pressure from my parents, about Marissa's endless manipulations, about the guilt that always lingered no matter how far I tried to run. I expected judgment or pity, but Natalie just nodded, her eyes steady on mine. "You've carried too much that was never yours to carry," she said softly. "Their mistakes aren't your responsibility. You deserve to live your own life without chains." Her words hit me harder than I expected. No one had ever said that to me before. For years, I had been told that family meant sacrifice, that being a good son meant giving up everything for people who gave nothing back. To hear someone say the opposite, to have someone actually believe I deserved better, it was like breathing fresh air after years underground. Natalie didn't just talk. She showed me what support truly looked like. She checked in on me without smothering me. She encouraged me to take small steps toward the things I wanted, not the things others demanded. When I doubted myself, she reminded me of how far I'd already come. It wasn't about fixing me, it was about walking beside me. For the first time, I realized what it felt like to be cared for without conditions. No manipulation, no guilt, just genuine kindness. Sitting in that kitchen, with the quiet hum of the fridge and Natalie's words still echoing in my head, I made a silent vow. I would build a life so strong, so independent, that my family would never have power over me again. I wouldn't let their chaos define me. From that moment, my future belonged to me. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was finally enjoying a rare moment of peace. I had just finished cleaning my tiny apartment and was sitting by the window with a book when there was a loud knock on the door. At first, I thought it might be Caleb dropping by, but when I opened it, my stomach tightened. Standing there was Richard, my father. His presence filled the narrow hallway like a shadow I thought I'd left behind. He didn't waste time with greetings. "Thomas," he barked, his eyes narrowing. "We need to talk. Enough of this nonsense. Pack your things and come home." I held the door frame, steadying myself. "I'm not coming back," I said evenly. His jaw tightened. "Don't be foolish. You owe us. After everything we did raising you, feeding you, putting a roof over your head, this is how you repay us? You walk away when your family needs you most." The words stung, but not the way they once did. Months ago, I might have felt guilt crawl up my chest, but not anymore. I looked him straight in the eye and said the truth I had been holding in for years. "I raised myself," I said, my voice firm. "While you spoiled Marissa, I was the one working, sacrificing, cleaning up your messes. Don't stand here pretending I owe you anything. You chose her over me every single time." For a moment, Richard's face faltered. His eyes widened as if he had been slapped with reality, but pride quickly returned to cover it. "Ungrateful," he spat. "You'll regret this." His fists clenched, and then he turned on his heel and stormed down the hall, the echo of his footsteps fading with each step. I closed the door slowly, leaning against it, my heart pounding. But instead of fear, I felt something else, power. For the first time in my life, I had stood my ground without trembling, without second-guessing myself. The fear that used to control me was gone. That night, as if timed perfectly, my phone buzzed. A text from Marissa. I stared at the screen, already knowing what it would be. "Thomas, it's me. I'm really sick. I need you. Please don't ignore me." The message was followed by a crying emoji, a cheap attempt to pull at my sympathy. I could almost picture her lying comfortably in her room, not sick at all, just desperate to drag me back into her chaos. I sat there, phone in hand, thinking about how many times I had dropped everything for her before, how many times she had cried wolf, only to laugh later while I bore the weight of her recklessness. Not this time. I put the phone face down on the table and didn't reply. The silence was heavy, but it felt like freedom. For once, I wasn't playing her game. For once, I chose myself. The days of scraping by in my tiny apartment slowly turned into months of growth and change. At work, my efforts began to pay off. I stayed late, took on responsibilities no one else wanted, and made sure every task was done with precision. My manager noticed. One morning, he called me into his office, and for the first time in years, I heard words I had longed for. "Thomas, we're promoting you. You'll be leading your own team now. You've earned it." Hearing those words felt surreal. All my life, my family had dismissed me, acting like nothing I did mattered. But here, in this place I had built for myself, my work was seen, valued, and rewarded. Walking back to my desk that day, I didn't just feel like an employee. I felt like a man carving his own path. With the promotion came a pay raise, and with that came new possibilities. I moved out of the rundown apartment that had been my starting point and found a nicer place in a better neighborhood. It wasn't extravagant, but it was warm, bright, and finally felt like a real home. What made it even better was that I wasn't building it alone anymore. Natalie and I had grown closer with each passing week. What started as late-night conversations turned into dinners, walks, and laughter that filled the spaces I once thought would always be empty. Dating her brought me a joy I never thought I deserved. She believed in me, not because of what I could give, but because of who I was. She didn't see me as a safety net or a stepping stone. She saw me. As we unpacked boxes together in the new apartment, she smiled at me and said, "You've come so far, Thomas. And you're just getting started." I believed her. For once, I could look at my life and see progress, see hope, see love. But while my world was finally opening, my family's world was collapsing. Word reached me through colleagues who still lived in my old neighborhood. Marissa's business troubles had worsened. Former business partners were suing her for fraud, claiming she had misused their investments. The lavish image she had always flaunted was crumbling into dust. My parents, who had poured everything into shielding her, were now buried in debt. Richard was said to be working odd jobs just to keep food on the table, while Donna's health was faltering under the stress. They had built their lives around Marissa's lies, and now they were trapped in the ruin she left behind. I listened quietly whenever the rumors reached me, but I didn't reach out. I didn't rush to save them. I had tried for years to hold them together, and they had mocked me when I chose myself. Now, all I could do was focus on what I had finally found: peace, love, and the life I was building with Natalie. For the first time, my happiness wasn't tied to their chaos. It was mine alone. Donna's voice shook through the phone, raw with panic. "Thomas, please listen. The bank is taking the house. They're foreclosing on everything. We don't know what to do." Thomas held the phone loosely, his other hand resting calmly on his desk. The city lights stretched endlessly beyond his apartment window, a stark contrast to the darkness unraveling in his parents' home. For years, they had built walls against him, siding with Marissa at every turn. Now those walls were crumbling, brick by brick, and his mother's trembling voice was the echo of collapse. "What happened, Mom?" he asked, his tone measured. Donna sniffled. "It's your sister. She was caught doing shady things. Fraud. To keep her business alive. The investors are pressing charges. It's all over the papers. Your father and we put the house up as collateral to help her. And now, everything is gone." A heavy silence hung between them. Thomas could almost hear the years of choices, the favoritism, the betrayals, all rushing back like ghosts. The boy who once begged for scraps of love, the young man who fought to be seen, was gone. In his place stood someone stronger, someone who had clawed his way out of their shadows. "Thomas," Donna whispered, her voice breaking. "You're our son too. Please, can't you help us? Just this once." He closed his eyes. The memories cut sharp, Richard dismissing him, Donna turning her face away when Marissa mocked him. The night he left with nothing but a suitcase. He had cried then, but not anymore. "Help you," he repeated softly. "When I needed you, where were you? When I begged you to believe in me, you looked away. You made me survive on my own. And now I finally am." Her breath hitched. "Don't say that. Don't be so cold-blooded. We're family." A bitter smile crossed his lips. "You taught me coldness, Mom. Every time you chose her over me. Every time you made me feel like a stranger in my own home. I didn't walk away from family. You pushed me out of it." On the other end, Donna began to sob, her cries heavy and uncontrolled. For a brief moment, a flicker of the old Thomas stirred inside him, the boy who longed for his mother's embrace. But it faded quickly, replaced by a hardened truth. Their downfall wasn't his burden to carry. "Goodbye, Mom," he said quietly, then ended the call. The silence afterward felt different this time. Not lonely, not empty, but freeing. He turned back to his work, to the life he had built piece by piece without them. For once, he wasn't the broken son left behind. He was the man who had learned to stand, even as the house that rejected him burned to the ground. Thomas sat on the balcony of his new apartment, a cup of coffee in hand, watching the city come alive beneath him. For the first time in years, he felt no burden weighing down his shoulders. Life had finally given him a chance to breathe freely. Natalie padded out of the bedroom, hair still messy from sleep, and kissed his cheek. Her simple affection was worth more than all the hollow approval he had once begged for from his family. He didn't need their validation anymore. His life was finally his own. As weeks passed, Thomas focused on thriving. His leadership role at work blossomed. His team respected him, and his managers relied on his steady decisions. Natalie encouraged him, celebrating even the smallest victory. Together, they built a rhythm of love and stability, something he had never known growing up. Every night at dinner, every laugh shared, reminded him that he had chosen the right path by cutting ties. His silence toward his family became its own kind of revenge. But Donna never stopped calling. One rainy afternoon, her trembling voice left yet another message. "Thomas, please, your sister, she might go to jail. Can't you at least help her avoid prison? She's your blood." Thomas listened to the voicemail, his expression unreadable. Once, he might have felt guilty. Once, he might have rushed to save them. But not anymore. He deleted the message without replying. At work the next day, his coworkers congratulated him on another successful project. He smiled, realizing that his revenge wasn't in plotting or fighting. It was in living better, stronger, without them. While they were drowning in scandal and debt, he was rising higher than he ever thought possible. Still, the family tried to claw at him with guilt. His father sent a letter, accusing him of being ungrateful and cold-hearted. His mother begged him to reconsider. Donna's words always carried the same tone, desperation laced with manipulation. Yet every plea only reminded Thomas of the countless times they had chosen Marissa over him. He had been invisible in his own family. Now, their downfall was visible for everyone to see. Thomas's true revenge came when his parents and sister saw him, happy, healthy, and successful, without their involvement. Rumors spread in their old neighborhood. "Thomas is doing so well now. Have you seen him?" Meanwhile, Marissa is sinking fast. Those whispers were more powerful than any confrontation. His silence became a mirror, forcing them to face the consequences of their favoritism. On a quiet evening, as he and Natalie planned their future, Thomas reflected on it all. He hadn't needed to lift a finger against them. They had destroyed themselves. All he had done was step away. That was the sweetest revenge of all: silence, distance, and a life well lived. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters the morning Marissa was sentenced. Cameras flashed as she walked out in disgrace. A woman once praised for her ambition, now reduced to whispers of fraud and community service. Her probation papers were tucked under her arm, her designer shoes scuffed, her face hollow. For years, she had been the golden child, untouchable, worshipped, spoiled beyond measure. Now, she was just another headline. Richard and Donna, once proud homeowners, had been forced to pack their lives into boxes and move into a cramped two-bedroom rental on the outskirts of town. Their sprawling house, filled with years of memories and trophies of their favoritism, had been foreclosed on. Neighbors gossiped about the Caldwell's fall, how quickly privilege could collapse when built on arrogance and denial. Thomas drove past the old house one last time. He didn't stop, didn't roll down the window, didn't even glance too long. The lawn was overgrown, the shutters chipped. A for sale sign tilted in the ground like a gravestone. For the first time, he didn't feel bitterness, only peace. The weight he had carried for decades of being the neglected son, the scapegoat, the expendable one, was gone. At home, Natalie greeted him with her usual warmth, her smile a reminder of the life he had chosen for himself. Their small but beautiful house glowed with light and laughter. Friends often came by for dinner, filling the space with genuine conversation and kindness. No manipulation, no guilt, no favoritism, just people who loved him for who he was, not what he could give. One evening, Donna called again. Her voice cracked through the line, carrying years of regret she couldn't fully voice. Thomas, we've lost everything. Your sister, she's not the same. We don't know what to do anymore. We thought, maybe you could help us. Thomas listened quietly. Once, those words would have lit guilt inside him. Once, he might have rushed to save them, desperate for a scrap of their approval. But not anymore. His reply was calm, steady. I can't, Mom. I finally built a life free of all of that. You taught me to survive alone. And now I am. He hung up before she could respond. Later that night, standing in the doorway of his new home, Thomas looked out into the quiet street. The air was cool, the stars faint but steady. He thought of all the nights he had cried alone as a boy, all the times he had begged silently for love that never came. And now, as the laughter of Natalie and their friends drifted from inside, he understood the truth. Walking away had not been weakness, it had been strength. He closed the door behind him, not in anger, not with regret, but with finality. The past was gone, the future was his, and for the first time, Thomas Caldwell was free. Do you believe Thomas was right to finally shut the door on his family and build his own peace? Or should he have given them another chance despite all the betrayal? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next one.